It is 12 minutes after 11 o'clock. Welcome back inside Brunch. Having this all the way up until 12 o'clock, we started out the morning looking at what we call disclosure today, looking at the Panama Papers. I did have aspirations of going to Panama. I have since changed my mind because I may be flagged. However, and we moved after to the Inspector of Prisons looking at that situation. Well, top of everybody's lips is what we heard on Friday afternoon. That was the Minister of Finance doing the review budget, and a number of things were introduced there, and a lot of this I want to get clarity from my guest. My guest is Marlene Attzs. She is lecturer at the Department of Economics, University of the West Indies. She's also a founding member of the Sustainable Economic Development Unit, which is very important. That is a specialized research unit in the Department of Economics, a primary area of research. However, economics of disaster risk management and climate change adaptation, gender mainstreaming in disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. So we are happy to have her here. It's also in sustainable tourism development. And if I go through her list, another guest of mine that I will take another 5 minutes to do. So let me first of all say, Dr. Attzs, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
The privilege is ours, and we are hoping for the clarity that I know you will bring to us. The reduction in government expenditure announced by the Minister of Finance closes the deficit gap. However, the unpredictability of oil prices, the reality that this commodity may never ever see prices above $50 a barrel, and the decision to peg this at $35 a barrel as against $30. Was that a wise choice?
Well, I don't know what would have informed the minister's final decision, but I would have preferred if we were a little more conservative and we would have gone for the lower rate of, let's say, the $30, because as I was explaining at another forum yesterday, one of the challenges Trinidad and Tobago finds itself in is that we are price takers, and the price of oil and gas is extremely volatile. We don't influence that process. The minister shared on Friday that the price of oil dipped because of a statement made by one of the members of OPEC, and then it rose again because again of another statement made by one of the members of OPEC. So that in itself, as simple as it might be, really makes the point that Trinidad and Tobago, while oil and gas is significant for us in terms of our economic growth and the management of our economy, we really are not. I think that the message that the population should have taken from that is that we really are not significant players in terms of determining the price. And all of that said, I would have preferred, given the challenges that we now face and the economic environment in which we find ourselves, if we were a little more conservative so that perhaps the population would have really got the message that it cannot be business as usual.
Let us see. All it took was Saudi Arabia to make the statement that we are not joining any controlled output, and the prices went down. Then you hear one other oil producer make the statement, we may put a freeze on output. Prices went up, and after the market played with that for a couple of days and nothing further came of it, then prices started doing its vacillation, as it were. The finance minister said appropriate measures will be taken to ensure that our existing rate does not move to more than a further 3.3% from today's rate. Now, I go straight into the foreign exchange questions. There are a lot of domestic policy and domestic decisions we'll take. I'll get there in a moment, but everybody's concerned, and as a matter of fact, I waited throughout his presentation for him to get to the point of devaluation, because everybody waited for that. He did not use that word. It was no part of his vocabulary, and I understand why. He did say, however, we have had a 3.3% increase, and it will be managed to avoid it going beyond that this year. Firstly, how much will that actually be, Dr. Attzs, when we talk in the context of the Trinidad and Tobago dollar to the US dollar? If you have that increase of 3.3, how much are we talking about?
We're talking about a very marginal increase, and what the population may have noticed, persons who may have been demanding foreign exchange, going to the banks, several things they would have noticed over the last couple of months. If you go to the bank and you try to get foreign exchange, and I'm not talking about exorbitant amounts, I'm talking about, let's say, 500 US, you might be traveling or you need 500 US. the bank would need for you to provide an airplane ticket, a confirmed airline ticket, so that they can verify that this foreign exchange is not going to be used for any other purpose other than for travel purposes. The other thing that you would have noticed is that the quantum that is available to you is extremely limited. So it points to everything that is happening. Now, there are, I suppose, ebbs and flows in terms of our demand for foreign exchange. Practically everything we consume in Trinidad and Tobago is in fact imported, so there is a general demand for foreign exchange. We know that given the reduction in revenues from the oil and gas sector, that is one sort of area in which there's been a slowdown in terms of the supply of foreign exchange. So that source of revenue, of foreign exchange revenue, is not as there's no surplus as there was before. But there is also reduction in terms of energy production. So we're not producing for export. So we're also not earning as much foreign exchange in terms of exports from that particular sector. So we find ourselves where we continue to have a demand for foreign exchange to satisfy consumption, but the supply is rising. So invariably, the price is going to increase, and we're going to see that happening. But coupled with that normal sort of vacillation, as it were, in terms of the supply and demand and the price at which we get the foreign exchange, which is effectively the exchange rate, there will also be periods during which we're going to demand more foreign exchange. So coming out of the Christmas period, when all of those nice things available in stores for us to consume, that those consumer items, there would have been a demand for foreign exchange for those. So that would have exacerbated the already existing demand for foreign exchange. Carnival, unfortunately, is another period during which we have a high demand for foreign exchange because of all our costumes, unfortunately, are imported.
Little contradiction in itself, because with the amount of tourists coming in here, you would think that's a greater availability.
Yeah, all right. But when the tourists come, sometimes they come with packages that they paid for in their home country. So the idea that we have all of these tourists coming in, so therefore we're going to be awash with foreign exchange, really does not work. No, it does not work out. It doesn't work that way. So the minister recognizes that once we continue to have these demand pressures on the foreign exchange, it is very likely that we can find ourselves tottering closer to 7 TT to one US dollar. Now, what he also did see, one of the ways in which the central bank, he says I forget the verb that he used, whether he said he has instructed or asked or whichever it is, but one of the things that he did see was that the central bank, to avoid that demand pressure on the foreign exchange and thereby sort of pushing the exchange rate up, the central bank ever so often is going to put money into the system. They're going to put money into the foreign exchange, into the market.
For those who were listening, that is the explanation for managed float. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Because,
that is what the central bank is going to do. But my concern is, at the same time, the minister spoke about the amount of foreign exchange reserves that we have. We have 11 months cover. And if the central bank has to manage the exchange rate, but also has to manage the drawdown of foreign exchange reserves. Because if you draw down the foreign exchange reserves, it means that your savings for rainy day also get depleted.
That's right.
So that is a kind of tightrope that we're going to be walking. Now, personally, this is my personal view, I would have preferred the minister to send a slightly stronger signal in terms of the exchange rate and for us to go to some kind of depreciation, let's say to 7. But I suspect from the minister would not have wanted to engage in scare tactics, so he decided to use other routes, which would be including things like the levy on online purchases, etc. So
which you will forgive me, may not necessarily be scare tactics as much as letting folks down easily, because that may be the concern. And your point was not lost when you said, I wonder what mathematics or what reference points he's using, why he took $35.
Yeah.
I think that was part of what I've got 6 months before the next budget.
Yeah.
Let me let you down a little easy.
Yeah, let me sort of ease you into the
let me ease you into the next budget.
Yeah, because 2017 budget, I suspect, will contain, I mean, we've already got the fuel subsidy scare, so I think we have sufficient time to get adjusted to that. But certainly for fiscal 2017, the minister is also going to have to make some additional adjustments, because the prognosis is that the oil prices will not rebound anytime soon to what we had grown accustomed to in the recent past, so to speak. So I think all of this is really a way of managing what ultimately is is a lesson in fiscal consolidation. How does the government rein in its expenditures or manage its expenditures at a time when the revenues aren't as easy to come by, or as they have been in the past? So.
It is 22 minutes after 11 o'clock. Marlene Attzs is our guest. She's a senior lecturer in the Department of Economics, University of the West Indies. We are fortunate to have her here this morning and asking her to break down some of the inside baseball terms that economists understand, but we don't, i.e., the Minister of Finance said, and I think you alluded to that a moment ago, when he said adequate supplies of foreign exchange will be available by utilizing our foreign reserves and considerable foreign exchange buffers. Considerable foreign exchange buffers. I mean, I like to hear details of these things because it sounds nice and it's a wonderful one-liner. But help me out with this.
Again, one of the things, I think the entire package that the minister presented in terms of the review was really about, as I said, the fiscal consolidation. How do we manage the expenditures given given the revenues, but also looking at the exchange rate, which we know has been a concern for many. The private sector has voiced serious concerns about the availability of foreign exchange, and I know that somewhere in the local market, persons have in fact already been purchasing U.S. currency at 7 or 8 thereabouts. So I think the minister's whole tone and the message that he wanted to communicate was really that that he is saying that as a policy position, the exchange rate has not been devalued and will not depreciated, which is what the term is for a floating exchange rate. And he has no intentions, I presume, in the near future would be some kind of, in parentheses there, he has no intention in the near future of depreciating the currency. But the reality is that he knows what is happening in the market. So he's going to use whatever resources we have available, including our foreign exchange reserves, to try and ensure that some measure of comfort or reassurance is given to the population.